Everybody to Energy and Policy Notes with Neil, our very first edition of 2026. I think we are well past the expiration date for wishing people a happy new year. So I'm just going to roll right in and say 2026 is already off to a dramatic start when it comes to energy policy. I had thought 2025 was the big year for energy policy matters. 2026 looks like it's going to be every bit as big a one. We woke up to it early in the new year with the news that the United States of America had successfully apprehended Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. And really the U.S. engagement in Venezuela appears to be very much centered around energy policy. And I think there's a lot for us in the energy space to keep an eye on in this regard. The rhetoric has and focus in the early days has obviously been about oil and gas and Venezuela's reserves, including critical minerals in addition to oil and gas, and what it means for their infrastructure and what it would mean to resuscitate their infrastructure and make investments to bring it back online, and how that could benefit the U.S. There hasn't been much focus or as much focus on Venezuela's electricity infrastructure. You want to extract oil and gas, you need power. And there needs to be more focus on the state of Venezuela's grid and what needs to be done to really provide the necessary power to take advantage of the potential opportunities, depending on how U.S. companies and the government want to go about this. But it's also tied to other sort of foreign policy issues. I'm looking at the potential for a peace deal in Europe and what that might mean for energy policy. I've discussed on these episodes in the past what Europe's dependence on Russian gas has meant for them economically and geopolitically. If there is a peace deal in Europe, could that alter some of the energy and gas politics, and what could the implications be? If the price of gas goes up, is that an opportunity for other sources of energy? If the price of gas goes down, what does that potentially mean for alternative sources of energy? And could they pick up market share, or could they get squeezed out? A lot to watch in the foreign policy arena over 2026. And I'm certain I will be back commenting on this in future episodes. Domestically here in the U.S., I'm focused on federal legislative permitting reform. I think it's absolutely necessary to answer some of the energy challenges that we have today. I thought we saw some good progress towards the end of the year with the House of Representatives passing a permitting reform bill through the full House, and there had been some interest on a bipartisan basis on the behalf of U.S. senators to potentially take up that House bill. That got derailed a little bit when the administration canceled a number of all previously approved offshore wind projects that really threw a wrench into negotiations around legislative permitting reform. I'm hopeful that we can get to a decent place there. Last year, 2025, was the year of the OBBBA, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which was enacted via the procedural tool I've discussed here, budget reconciliation. There has been some talk of potentially doing another budget reconciliation vehicle in 2026 that would be Republican only, passed through the House and the Senate and signed by the president. I'm not sure the votes are there, that the political will is there to do that, or that there's even necessarily that big of a need, at least when it comes to energy. Maybe they do something in regards to healthcare or other policy via reconciliation. But I generally think permitting reform is going to be the big focus legislatively in the U.S. around this. Got some other things to focus on. The government runs out of funding at the end of the month. Again, we just went through the longest shutdown in U.S. history. I don't think anyone wants to go through another one. But here we are again with complicated issues on energy and climate, on domestic policy around ICE and funding for the Department of Homeland Security, still outstanding issues on healthcare policy. No one I speak with wants a government shutdown. Everybody is saying the right things and are optimistic we can avoid one. but it is something that needs to be resolved here in the coming weeks. And then finally, my former agency, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, I think is at the epicenter of one of the biggest policy issues in this space in 2026. And that is in regards to how they handle this Department of Energy directive regarding the process for large load interconnection. How do we provide power to these big data centers for AI, but also for an increasingly electrified society across vehicle electrification and building electrification, and reshoring of manufacturing, cloud computing, quantum computing, crypto, Bitcoin mining. All these things are large loads that we're going to require a tremendous amount of power. And depending on what FERC does, it could be really, really transformative and be a very consequential rulemaking that upends the way that we do energy and electricity policy in this country. And I actually think if thoughtfully done, it provides a huge opportunity, particularly for those of us who care about flexible resources and demand side resources. This was a very thoughtful proposal from DOE, and I think FERC, while this isn't going to be easy, is handling it in a very thorough and expert manner. And it's going to be something that I'm going to be keeping close tabs on throughout 2026, and will be sure to update you all on future episodes of Energy and Policy Notes with Neil. Go Bills.